I cannot wait to introduce you to my first guests. We have Dr. Amy Gunderson and Dr. Tyler Lewis of Self Unbound. And Dr. Amy grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Amy has always had a love for nature, life, adventure, and the outdoors. Knowing good health was the gateway for being able to experience all the magic life had to offer, she pursued a career in bodywork directly out of high school. And while working in various chiropractic offices, she was exposed to the philosophy and science of chiropractic, and it gripped her soul as a familiar calling. She then went to Parker University in Dallas, Texas, where she obtained her Doctor of Chiropractic degree, and she now serves in Dallas, Texas, at Self Unbound, and is grateful to witness miracle after miracle every day in the lives of their practice members. And Dr. Tyler Lewis is an Arkansas native. He graduated from Hendrix College in Conway, Arkansas, with a Bachelor of Arts degree in biochemistry and molecular biology. Inspired by the body's innate wisdom to heal, Tyler attended Parker University in Dallas, where he graduated with a Doctor of Chiropractic in April 2016. And at Parker, Tyler refined his attention to studying consciousness and its effects on an individual's total well-being. He first engrossed himself in the hardware of the brain, studying functional neurology through the Carrick Institute for 2.5 years. And today, Tyler serves in Dallas at Self Unbound, where he pours his soul into sharing the same revolutionary shift in well-being with everyone he connects. So, what is network spinal analysis?
Well, first, I wanted to thank you for having us on here. Thanks. I'm excited to be here. Network spinal analysis, you said a few things that kind of pegs the whole, I guess we'll get into why I got into it, but it's a chiropractic technique that works with the connective tissue that wraps your brain, spinal cord, and nerves. We address the tension in that connective tissue that gets stored in your body from any type of trauma, whether it's emotional trauma, mental trauma, chemical trauma, like you're saying, food allergies or the breast implants, or physical trauma. Basically, trauma is anything that, or any instance that you're exposed to too much information that your nervous system can't process at one time. So it stores it around the nerves and that connective tissue. And it does it for a couple of reasons. It's a protective mechanism, for one. If you're having too much information come in and your nervous system can't keep up with that information and keep your body running, like heart beating and lungs breathing, it shuts down that pathway. So you're not receiving more information. So great short term. The other reason is it's literally a storage unit. But as far as short term, keeps your body moving and keeps you alive. But long term, whatever's on the end of that nerve, the brain no longer has communication with. So diseases set in, certain symptoms, inflammation, muscle pain, a lot of different things can occur because the nervous system is the control system for everything. So at its very basic points, NSA helps your brain become aware of this tension, unwind it at a sustainable pace so that the brain can process the information and doesn't go into defense by being bombarded with too much at one time. Another thing that network spinal analysis does is it teaches your nervous system strategies to be more energy efficient. So that way in the future, if you have stressors that come in and a lot of information, it can process it in a way that's really energy efficient and doesn't tax it too much. So you're storing less of that tension. So anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, why is all of this so important? And I think one thing that takes a leap in network spinal analysis is we look at the nervous system as the global system. I mean, we don't like to separate the body, the emotions, and the mind. They're all interconnected and they're all coordinated through the nervous system. I mean, the nervous system is what is controlling your everyday bodily movements and organ functions, muscle contraction, how your body's healing. So if you're disconnected from a part neurologically, then you actually lose your healing potential in that area of your body. But what we usually take for granted is the nervous system is also what's coordinating how you're receiving your environment through your 5 senses, how you feel about the environment. Do you feel safe? Do you feel excited? Do you feel scared, angry, defensive? And the nervous system also coordinates our thoughts. So when we start looking at these things and we say, hey, guess what? You may have had, for example, emotional trauma in the past, which is leading to a physical circumstance or a physical symptom. People sometimes are pretty close down because how can you make that connection? Well, if your body, if your nervous system is processing something as stress, it perceives that as a trauma, it responds the exact same way as though a physical trauma actually took place. And so that's kind of the fun thing about this is that when you start bringing all of these systems online into what we call coherent, so everything's meeting in the same space, things start to unravel, things start to heal. An environment that you once may have perceived as threatening and that you physically needed to close down to and get tense to, you start shifting your perceptions of that environment to one that's not as threatening. You're able to take in more from your environment, process that information, and be able to respond with more energy rather than reacting from a defensive state. And whenever you begin to reach that state, there's just so much more ease in the body. So that manifests as decreased pain, decreased inflammation. You find more ease in the emotions. So you start feeling higher quality emotions rather than being, so angry and like having attitudes or of sadness and being stuck in a place. All of a sudden things start to move, things start to turn over. And your mind, like this is the biggest thing, all of a sudden where maybe you were once so restricted in your viewpoint, you start to broaden, you begin to see things in another way. You begin to encompass more in your world and approach things in a way that you just haven't had access in the past because you didn't have the energy to actually stretch the mind that far just yet. And all of this is possible through this work, which is beautiful, just unraveling things, creating more ease and allowing the body to express itself to a fuller capacity.
Okay, cool. And to tell people, so you've explained what it's about, and what does it kind of look like when they come to you? Is it, I know what it's like, but you can tell people, and we might have something that shows your office too.
Yeah, and so when people think about chiropractic, I think traditionally they think about the cracking and the thrusting. So you'll lay down on a table, find the places of the spine that are locked up, and the chiropractor will adjust through those areas. Ultimately, those areas of your spine are locked up due to this connective tissue tension. So with this technique, we don't actually go in there and release all that information at one time because that tends to send the body back into defense where it originally was. What we do is it's through light touches on the body, mainly on the neck and the sacrum, so the two ends of the spine, and you're going to really specific connective tissue depths that trigger different parts of the brain to be aware of this connective tissue tension. So it's really light and relaxing as opposed to scary how some people view chiropractic.
Neck cracking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we think that in order to create change, we have to like apply this big force and like all this stuff has to happen. We're getting the body to listen to itself. So it doesn't need the same level of force. It's just sheer presence that you actually help the body to connect to itself, to start unraveling at a sustainable rate rather than, all at once, which the body may not be ready for. Sometimes, whenever you have restricted areas in your body and in the spine, that's protective. That's protecting you because you don't feel safe again to experience all the information in that spot. So you need to dampen that like a dimmer switch. We're here to teach the body, hey, bit by bit, it's okay to start doing that a little more and a little more to where whenever the body's ready to release it, it is gone. It's processed.
Nice. Okay, so what drew you all to NSA, NSA, not the the security thing, but network spinal analysis. And I just like to say that, it sounds sneaky, but I've only learned about it recently. And what made you say, I'm walking along one day doing this, and then this?
It's so funny how Tyler was talking about the force, and people think, the harder, the better, and more force. Well, it's just kind of in our culture today, everything's pretty extreme. That was me. I was doing massage for about 12 years before I got into chiropractic school, and it was deep tissue, like the harder the better, just like rip that tension out of the body. And I did CrossFit, and I was all about extreme. And then I was in chiropractic school. So needless to say, with all of that mentality, my adrenals started to fail. Chronic fatigue set in, and it wasn't like anything I'd experienced before. It kind of came out of nowhere because I always just was pushing. I started to lose hair. I started getting brown patches on my body. I was having anxiety attacks that were debilitating. I'd have to, in between classes, go out to my car and sleep. This deep, agitated, it was just my whole life felt like it was falling apart. And I was looking to try anything. And so I tried a lot of different avenues. I went to traditional chiropractic and nothing changed. I went to naturopaths, got on a ton of supplements, and I was managing, but it wasn't getting better. It wasn't healing. I went to medical Western medicine and took different medications that were prescribed to me, and nothing was getting better. And then I had a friend in chiropractic school that told me, well, there's this guy that does this really weird thing. And, if you're open to anything, come check him out. And I showed up at his office, and this is another part of network spinal analysis I didn't explain yet. But when I looked at people on the table, there was this wave going through their spine. It looked like a snake was crawling through their spine. It was something that you can't recreate. And I was just like, what is this? This is insane. But something about it just like penetrates like your being. You're just like, it just felt true and real. And because I think my nervous system was in such a depleted state, after my first treatment, it changed my life. Like the 180 you're talking about, I saw the world completely different once a little bit of that tension was liberated. And then I went full in after that.
Nice. And how about you, Tyler?
I've been really fascinated with what creates our experience as human beings and, what we're here to do. And that was a passion that was really fueled early on. I mean, before I came to chiropractic school, I fell in love with, again, this what's called innate intelligence is the things that's always helping us to grow and change and heal. But really getting into the chiropractic aspect of all of this stuff, I came across just, a train of thought that if you could fix the brain, then you could shift how the brain is coordinating certain actions and shunting resources to different parts of the body. And, I worked in a place that dealt with a lot of traumatic brain injuries and, really intense things to Alzheimer's. And, it was fascinating. It was fascinating. It was a lot of fun doing that. But I got kind of regimented in looking at the brain as hardware. And the more research I did outside of looking at just the physical housing, like hardware of the brain, you start seeing how people can go through these amazing injuries and horrific things and yet make full recoveries, these like spontaneous recoveries. And there's a lot of work going into that. And so that just was enough to say, hey, if this exists, it's worth looking into. And I started kind of opening my perspective to, okay, maybe I don't have everything figured out, but still I wanted to have a story. I wanted to have a story. Again, we had a mutual friend who told us about this technique that, he makes some touches and your body has this wave that goes through and it's kind of weird but it's really amazing, powerful. Just check it out. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm open to this. I want to go experience it. And yeah, the first time you see it from the outside without having experienced it, it's a lot to take in. However, after that first session, like I said, I was trying to keep everything safe. I wanted to be able to intellectualize it all. I wanted to know it all. I wanted to have everything in my little box. This punched a massive hole in that box. It freed me from the box where I could actually start looking outside of it and step into a world in a totally different way. I didn't realize I was being invulnerable, that I wasn't trusting my emotions and my intuition with things. I was realizing that there were so many parts of my body that I was so cut off to. I wasn't embracing. I was trying to get away from because it wasn't safe. It didn't match what I wanted my reality to look like. And this work, for me, it allowed me to feel confident in stepping into places where I felt unsafe, not in a sense of, it needs to like challenge and grow, but I've been giving my power away in so many different ways. I've been trying to give my power to all of these different modalities to make me feel better rather than just dropping it, finding out who I am and really where I align. And that was a full bodied experience, not just intellectually, very much emotionally and very much physically.
I like it a lot. Now, being with all that, because I'm always very interested in all of this stuff too, but there are, because I'm a believer, but there's some non-believers or somebody's like, well, how does this work? How does it, or what is the, I guess, what do the haters say? So there are some people who are like, this can't possibly be true, even with my nose, I 100% didn't eat dairy, could breathe better, told people, and people were like, that's not true. And I'm like, you don't even know. It's my body. Like, you can't know how I breathe. But there will still be people that will insist that there's no truth to that. Anyways, what do the haters say to you? Or what have you heard, or just about network spinal analysis in general? Like some of the things that people say.
Oh my gosh. Anything and everything. Because like we said, even going into it, it looks really weird. It's something that nothing else looks like. You see the spine doing things that seem impossible. And so right away, just the logical mind, like he was saying, wants safety and it wants to understand, it wants a box. So people immediately are like, well, they're acting. This can't be real. This is fake. The body doesn't move like that. These people are pretending. But then when you experience it yourself, it's like, we'll still even have people that get the care experience it. But the logical mind is like terrified because you're about to blow a hole in the box. And so I think the biggest thing is, the stories that the mind makes up as far as like placebo or this is just wizardry. Some people even go as far as to saying it's a cult. And I honestly think what that stems from is, like he said, you can go around giving your power away to things outside of yourself everywhere, to whether people in certain positions, like you said, authority. And this is the opposite. It's literally getting to know yourself and finding your own power. And that can be really scary. And so it's just a brand new perspective, but a lot gets said.
Okay, well, I'm going to do full disclosure. I have been coming to see Dr. Amy and Dr. Tyler for quite a while now, and they have changed my life for the better. So if it's a cult, it's a good one, where you don't even feel like you have to stay. The best kind of brainwashing going on. They hardly even touch you, which is the whole. And I'm more of a believer in this kind of stuff, and so because I've had many experiences in my life which don't make sense, like in an A, B, and C form. So experiences that I've had that somebody say, "Well, that's not possible." Well, it's happened to me, so I know it is possible, and and from not trusting myself to totally turning a corner of disclosure. Had trauma, a whole bunch of stuff in my body. I carried around anger like it was my job. Probably the high CRP rates was that. And then thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a heart, like legit, like on a way to a heart attack. And I don't really want to have one of those. And so I had heard about this actually from my ex-husband's wife, and came and, was kind of almost like, well, I don't know. It's weird because this is nice, but they kind of touch you, but then could feel all these things in my body. And then emotions, and it's true. It really does work. But, one other thing before we totally close, what is something else that you maybe do another way in your life that's just, you got into this? What's something else that you think you do that's to let people in on?
Okay, so for me, and I know this goes for both of us, but the way we approach pain in our bodies, really, the bodies are a tool to indicate, to guide us through life. So when pain pops up, sitting with it, being with it, not trying to get it to go away, realizing that, maybe my plan isn't the plan and maybe I need to surrender it. And so that's been powerful because my body, I used to control my body, and it's not that my body controls me. I just have respect for its wisdom now. And so I think that's probably a little different. It's a different way of living.
For sure.
Yeah, that's extremely well stated. I feel like in today's society is how much can we get away from pain? How much can we numb out? Can we coat over it and move? It's dangerous, right? Because in pain, there is insecurity. But the way we look at it is, how can you step into it? What is insecure? What needs to feel more secure? What is my body trying to tell you? I mean, our body is our greatest assignment while we're alive. Like, we're here, we're grounded in this, and we're not getting away from it. And when we do, right? But while we're here, how can we begin to listen? What in our life is really starting to trigger certain pain? Like, for example, you said, you're carrying around all that anger like it was your job, and your inflammatory signals were way up, which, I mean, that's inflammation, right? I need to barricade, I need to push, I need to destroy, whatever it is. That's such an important factor, because we start to see the manifestations in the body are actually trying to tell you that there's an emotional component, and there might be something going on in your life that maybe you have a blind spot to. And that pain is to wake you up to something that is going on so that it can be addressed and healed and processed and moved through, rather than how can I shut down to the pain so that I keep living the exact same way whenever this pain is trying to interrupt my life. It's either telling me that, I'm pushing through things that I should really be with, or that I'm being called to step up in a whole new way that I've been resistant to. So being able to, whenever pain pops up for us, be able to look at things that way. I mean, wow, there's so much wisdom in pain. There's so much wisdom there, and being able to crack into it is powerful.
That's a great ending for that, for sure. And so you can find Dr. Amy and Dr. Tyler at selfunbound.com. And tonight they are being gracious enough to host me. I'm doing a guided hypnotic imagery with sound to tap into the power of love, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. But they do a lot of other classes, numerology. A woman named Barbara Cole does this amazing sound healing. They have emotional classes, SRI breathing. You should check it out. It's another way. And thank you so much.
Thank you,
All right,
Marina.
thank you, Marina.
All right, there's always another way.